Hello everybody. Today is class number 5 of Shaar Habitachon. I'm so sorry. Here, I moved it. It's better like that. So just to review, we spoke about the alchemist. You remember? The alchemist. Why does he bring it even if he doesn't especially believe that it exists? But he brings it because back then people thought that if you become an alchemist, you would reach infinite wealth. Is the door closed, by the way?
Tu as fermé la porte après moi?
Oui. Okay. So he brings it as a what's the word? As a parable, as a just metaphor for people who want to find that infinite wealth, which will bring them calm and peace. And he says, for an alchemist, he will still have to worry about his tools. About finding the right tools, finding the right materials, so he still has worries. But someone who believes in God, he doesn't have to worry about anything. If you really want to find that peace of mind, don't try to look or put it in other things besides bitachon b'Hashem, besides trust in Hashem. Trust in Hashem will give you true tranquility, and he brings it by bringing examples of the Torah, by bringing the story of the man, right? Of God providing for the Jewish people and how he provided exactly what they needed every day. Every night they went to sleep, their fridge, their house was empty of food, and they, fridge or whatever. I'm kidding. I'm saying they're, whatever. They had no food.
Yeah.
And they woke up and they knew that they would be fed. And it was a practice for 40 years, practicing of real faith. And that's what we need to practice. Now, back then in the desert, they had manna from the heaven. But today we don't have manna from the heaven. We work. We have money coming through salaries, through businesses, through investments. We have to work for it. But it's still the same concept that it still comes from Hashem, and we have to have the same faith that the Jews had in the desert, going to sleep at night and knowing that the next day Hashem will provide for them. We have to have that same faith with whatever income or means of income we have today.
Even for health, maybe?
For health, for anything.
Money, huh?
Right now he's talking mainly about money, but we spoke. Don't worry, he's going to go through everything. Health.
Sure.
Now, the Rabbeinu Bachaya in this part brings in beautiful stories that I reread. I went back to the source and I read the story just to understand. It's such beautiful stories, and it's important to understand why does he bring these stories. It's to show us that Hashem from back then, right? When you read the book, the Tanakh, the Torah, you come to Shabbos and you hear the rabbis saying the stories about Noah and Abraham and all these miracles that they lived. And over here he brings stories with Eliyahu Hanavi. These are stories that Hashem from then and Hashem today is not different. There's no difference. He can perform the same miracles that he performed for all our forefathers and all the Jewish people who left Egypt. All these miracles that happen, they can happen today. Manna can fall from the sky. But today, that's not our nisayon. That's not our challenge. Our challenge today is that Hashem is hidden. Hashem hides, and he wants us to reveal him. But when we learn these stories, now we're going to delve into beautiful stories that are written in the Nevi'im, in Malachim actually, in the Kings. And we have to know that these stories could happen to us today. And if we don't see it, they're happening in hidden ways, and we just have to reveal it. So I'm going to read inside, and then I'm going to explain the story. Ki hasibot ena nivtzarot mimenu bechol et ubechol makom. For means of providing sustenance are not lacking from God at any time or in any place. So whatever time in history, whatever place you are, there's never a time where Hashem cannot provide for you. Just know that just like he provided the Jewish people man from the sky, today and in every day of history of this world, he's able to do the same thing. There's nothing that stops Hashem from doing that. כאשר ידעת מדבר אליהו עם העורבים ועם האישה האלמנה ועוגץ רצפים וצפחת המים. As you know from the story of Elijah with the ravens and with the widow, and from how God sustained him with the cool baked cake and a flax of water. So let me tell you beautiful stories written in Melachim. Again, remember, we're learning this. This can happen today. And it happens to us today in different ways.
What?
In hidden ways. We just have to reveal it.
Okay.
So, do you want me to read it inside or should I say the story by heart?
Whatever.
By heart? Okay. So the story goes like this. There was, the Jews were living in Israel, and there's a city in Israel that was destroyed by Yehoshua. It was the story of the city of Yericho. Yeshua, when he destroyed it, and that was the first city they entered Eretz Israel, was Yericho. They surrounded the walls, and the walls fell. Jericho, c'est ça. When it got destroyed, Yehoshua said, "This city can never be rebuilt. Anyone who rebuilds it, I curse them, that all their sons will die."
Whoa.
Years pass by, and the Jews have there's King David, King Shlomo, and then there's other kings, and the Jews are not in a good place. They're serving Avodah Zarah, they're doing really bad things. There's a king called Achav, who was a horrible, horrible king. He's married... Jewish, oh. Yes, for sure. He killed all the prophets, and he was a very, very bad king. And he made the Jews serve Avodah Zarah. Anyway, so there was a Jew living in that time who decided he's going to build Yericho. And so he started building the foundation, and his first son dies. He had, I believe 7 sons, and then he continues, and his second son dies, and third, and fourth, and fifth, until all his sons dies, and Eliyahu comes to visit him at the...
Eliyahu Hanavi?
Yeah, Eliyahu Hanavi. Back then he was not angel. He was still a human.
Il était un prophète, okay.
And he comes to visit him and to console him. And he tells, I forget what he tells the man exactly, but he tells him, he's not scared to tell him that
he should stop
the reason
building.
Why he built is because, the reason why his sons passed away is because he built the city, and that,
sure.
The king was there, Achav, very wicked king. He hears him and he says, you think that, sorry, I'm not quoting exactly, but he says, you think that the students' words are real when the teacher's words did not even become real? So what was he talking about? He was saying the student, who's the student? Yehoshua. Who's his teacher?
Eliyahu?
No. Yehoshua is the student of Moshe Rabbeinu, right?
Okay.
There was Moshe Rabbeinu right after, the leader right after when he passed away was Yehoshua.
Okay.
Yeshua's words is the curse. He cursed anybody who builds Yericho. But he says, but Moshe Rabbeinu's words are not coming true. In Shema, if you read, it says that anybody who serves Avodah Zarah, if Bnei Israel serves Avodah Zarah, there's not going to be any rain or dew in Eretz Israel. Or there's not going to be any rain, or basically there's going to be a drought. And he says, it didn't happen. Look at us. We're serving Avodah Zarah. We still have rain and falling. Eliyahu was so angry at the disrespect he had for Torah, for Hashem, for Moshe Rabbeinu. He said, mark my words, there's going to be no more rain and dew. And he added, and dew, no more rain and dew.
C'est quoi dew?
Pas de pluie ni de rosée. According to my words, devarai. Why does he say my words? Because he didn't see prophecy. He didn't see any prophecy. He stood up for Hashem. He stood up for the Torah, and he said, you mark my words. And this was not prophecy. He was so trusting in Hashem. He had such a strong trust, emunah, that he believed that Hashem will make this happen.
Oh.
And guess what happens?
It happened.
There's no rain. There's a drought. And Hashem right away comes to Eliyahu. He says, go run away. Now it's beautiful. You have to understand, Hashem can perform miracles. Can you imagine? He goes and tells Eliyahu to go and run away. Why? Because the king is going to want to kill you. Hashem doesn't change nature. He creates a way that miracles and sustenance and protection works with the nature, but he also wants us to work with nature. He doesn't tell Eliyahu, stay there, don't worry, I'm going to protect you.
To be challenged,
He tells him, go hide. He wants to kill you, go hide. And he says, but don't worry, when you're hidden, I'm going to provide for you. He tells him exactly where to go. He goes and he says there's water there. He goes next to the water so he can drink water. And he says ravens are going to come and feed you. Ravens are one of a very ugly bird, one of the worst birds. And they came every day, every morning and every night. They came, they brought him bread and meat. Why ravens?
They steal.
Why the ugliest?
It's in their...
They steal, that's funny. But why did Hashem send? He could have sent any other birds. Why did he send the worst birds?
Nobody would be interested in looking at where ravens go.
He wanted to send a very important message to Eliyahu. He said these birds, ravens, are known to be very cruel, right? Apparently, that's, I don't know. He said even the most cruel bird has some good in it, and they're bringing you and they're feeding you. Just know Achav and all the Jewish people, even if they're in a really bad place and they're doing such cruel things, they have good inside of them. And find that good in them, and don't, judge and close the door. So this was sending a very strong message to Eliyahu. And for a few weeks he lived there, and every morning and every night the ravens brought him bread and meat. Some people said, ça c'est dans Mlachim, dans le livre.
Un livre qui s'appelle Mlachim.
C'est le livre.
Après les 5 livres de Moïse, il y a tous les autres livres, il y a roi.
Après les Nevi'im, les Nevi'im, ça en fait partie. Okay.
So again, we see how he was provided for. Why does he bring this story? Remember, there's so many stories of God's miracles, but he brings very specific story. We see within the story, this is a very natural way of how Hashem provided for him, right? It was through, through the water that was right there, and through the birds that brought him. They actually took the food from Achav, from the king. It said that they took it from the king and they brought it to him. So Achav, the king who wanted to kill him, didn't even know that he was providing food and for his biggest enemy. What happens next? So again, all this, we see different ways of Hashem being able to provide. And this Eliyahu trusted. He stayed there, he hid, he trusted. The brook where he was by, the water, dries up because there's a drought, right? It dries up. Hashem tells him, don't worry. I'm still going to provide for you. Go to this in this city. He says, I'll tell you what city. 1 minute. It's Tzarfat. Go to Tzarfat. It's in Lebanon, I think, or in the north. And a widow will take care of you. He doesn't tell him what widow. He just tells him a widow will take care of you.
Widow?
Widow is someone who... What?
C'est ça, okay.
And again, Eliyahu with faith, he believes if God told him he will provide for him, he will provide for him. And he comes, and as soon as he enters the city, he sees a woman collecting wood, and he knows that it's this woman, but he wants to check. So he goes to the woman and he says, can I have some water? And she puts down her wood, and she goes and she gets him a jug of water, and he drinks. And then he continues, right? He knows that she's supposed to provide him food and water. So he says, can you bring me some bread? And the widow says, I'm collecting wood now because all I have in my house is a little bit of flour and oil, but I have nothing baked, and after this we'll die because I have nothing else. And with perfect faith, Eliyahu tells her, go with the last piece of oil and flour you have, make me a cake. Why does he tell her that? Make me a cake. He takes all her food away. He knows that if Hashem told him that she will provide for him, then she will have food. She will have food. And if she starts by giving him this cake, she will have what she needs. And again, she also trusts him. She knows that he's a holy man, and she trusts him. So she does also have emunah. And she goes home and she makes him a cake or bread, whatever it is that she can make with oil and flour. And she brings it back to him, and guess what happens? Her oil and flour does not finish. Never ends. And he goes and he stays a couple of weeks. There's another story, but this story is not important
Toujours
for
avec
us.
Eliyahu Hanavi.
C'est toujours
Eliyahu.
Yes. What do we see from this story? Hashem has ways that are unexpected. Right? The first time was the birds, something that you unexpected that were feeding him. When the water dried up, he told him a widow will provide for you. You have to know, you have to think in your life, in different situations, your place. Sometimes you're like, how will this ever happen? How will I be able to get this? How will I be able to provide for whatever it is that you need? But if you have trust, Hashem will find ways. Whether it's through birds, whether it's through a person, whether it's through whatever way it is, Hashem will find a way to provide. You just have to have trust. And Bitachon brings you this tranquility. Now he continues. And you have and every word he uses are important. He says kasher yadata, right in the paragraph where he says a story about Eliyahu. Kasher yadata. These stories have to be known to you, have to be part of you. Yodea is knowledge that becomes part of you, so that you really believe in it, and you live by it. Okay, so these stories, think about it. Think about it when you're in a situation where you don't understand where your help is gonna come from. To believe, to have bitachon, that Hashem has the most creative way. He can bring in whatever. It's always gonna be in a natural way, but He's gonna provide for you, and you have to have faith. It continues and brings another story. Udvar Ovadyahu im hanevim shamar ve'achbia min vie Hashem 100 ish 50 ish b'mara ve'achal kelem lechem v'mayim. This concept can also be seen in the story of Obadiah with the prophets, about which he said, I hid 100 men and the prophets of the Lord, 50 men in each cave, and I provided them with bread and water. So let's continue the story. He's still hiding, right?
That's another story.
No, it's the same story. It's funny that
with
he
the
brings
widow?
the continuation.
Okay.
So he stays 2 years, I think, with the widow. I'm not sure how many years actually, but 2 years pass since he said the drought will come, and finally Hashem tells him, go back to Achav. We're going to stop the drought, but you have to go back to Achav to see the king. And so the story goes that Achav was in his palace, and he had head officer, someone who took care of his whole palace. His name was Ovadyahu. And
Il devient un prophète lui aussi, non?
Ouais. It says that Ovadyahu had a very strong faith and fear of Hashem.
Il a pris la place du king?
Non, lui, il travaillait pour le roi. But il n'était pas comme le roi. He had a very strong faith and belief in it, and bitachon b'Hashem. And when it says that when his wife and the king and his wife, they wanted to kill all the prophets, Obadiah went, he saved 100 prophets, he hid them in a cave, 50 in one cave and 50 in another cave. Why? Because he was scared that if Achav goes and find them, if they're all in one cave, he's going to kill all of them. But if they're 50, he's going to say, oh, I found 50, and really there's going to be another 50. So he tried to really hide them. Not only did he hid them, he provided food for them every day. Just think about it, 100 prophets. Besides his family, he had to provide food for 100 prophets. And all this in hiding, all this risking his life, All this during a drought when there's no food. And when Eliyahu comes, he tells him, go tell your king, your master, that I'm here. And he says, why me? They're looking for you. They want to kill you. Why should I bring you to your death? He says, no, go. He says, but you don't understand. You keep on disappearing, right? Eliyahu then would come and disappear and hide and come back and appear. He said, he's going to kill me. And if they kill me, who's going to take care of these 100 Nevi'im? Who's going to provide for them? He says, I hid 100 men of the prophets of the Lord, each of them, and I provided them with bread and water. Who's going to feed them if they kill me? Why did he bring this story? He brought this story to show us of Obadiah's faith. It's a different kind of faith. It's not the same one like Eliyahu. Eliyahu's faith was about him being provided. Obadiah had faith about his responsibility towards the Nevi'im. He knew he had to save these Nevi'im. And he knew it was his responsibility and nobody else's. And he did everything possible for I don't know how many years, even in the drought, to make sure that all these prophets are fed. And he took that responsibility to the extent he said, if I die, they're going to die. I have a huge responsibility. He fought for it. I heard something beautiful that someone shared, that a lion, when we talk about Habitachon, we always talk about a lion, because a lion will fight until his death. He will never let himself be killed or attacked, right? He will fight back and fight until his death. Our faith should be like that. When you believe in something, shouldn't be like, oh, I believe in God and he will provide me and just wait there. You have to fight. You have to fight and fight and fight, because that's what shows that you believe. Obadiah's faith was that he went out of his way and did everything possible to save these prophets. He didn't say, okay, I saved them and that's it. Now Hashem will provide for them. No, he went and he borrowed money and he found and he looked and he did everything possible in his possibility to in his power, yes, to feed these prophets. And this is another kind of emunah that we should have, that we shouldn't just stand there and wait there. We should do, as providers, right? We're parents, we're providers. We should do everything possible to provide for our kids, and we should have faith that it's going to happen, because God gave us this responsibility to take care of our kids, or whoever we're responsible to take care of. And it made me think, like for myself, we run a Chabad house. You know, we went through, before my bitachon was strong, I went through times like, how am I going to be able to provide for the Chabad? How can I, even for me, it's a struggle. How can I provide for the Chabad house? But when I heard this, it made me think of the same, I should have the same faith that Obadiah had, that he knew that these 100 prophets were in his charge, and that no matter what, he will find food for them, because Hashem will provide. It's not that Hashem provides. Yeah. Hashem provides.
In his ways, yeah?
In his ways. Sure. Hashem provides, and you have to do the effort in whatever way.
He provides through us.
Through different people,
through
yes.
Fighting. À travers notre travail, à travers.
Okay.
Et provides, mais à travers nous.
Mais des fois, c'est plus souvent à travers les autres, moi, je trouve.
Oui, à travers les autres.
But ça, c'est in these stories, you see two stories. You see one story where he provides through other people, right? Eliyahu was dependent on the birds bringing him the food. Eliyahu was dependent on the widow to provide for her. But over here, Obadiah's story is where he had to provide. And he fought for 100, besides his family, he had to provide for another 100 prophets. And he took that responsibility so strongly that when Eliyahu told him to go and announce that he's here, he didn't want to be killed, because he said, who's going to take care of these? So he took that really strongly. He knew that Hashem, that he is the messenger for them, that through him, he is providing what the prophets what they need.
So in a way, when you say to fight, to provide, like, let's say the very religious people that they have to study, how do they provide their kids? Like,
They also have to provide. There's
Well,
a
but
it
they
says
don't fight for that. Like
I don't
c'est ça que je veux
believe.
dire.
I don't know. It's not my way of believing. There is a way. I don't know. That I can't talk for
Based
what.
on the government.
C'est un commandement aussi
No,
d'étudier
in
la
the Torah
et
it
tout ça.
says im ein kemach ein Torah im ein Torah im kemach. If there's no flour represents business or
Ouais.
money. There's no Torah. If there's no Torah, there's no kemach. So you have to have a balance of both. So I'm not sure where it comes. Those people. There are also people who sit and learn all day, and then they have people who pay for them. There is that concept of Yisachar and Zvulun, the businessmen, and the people who learn Torah.
No, because I was thinking maybe the fight is also through fighting yourself, like to stay and study.
So
and
maybe that is a
connect
different
and
kind.
Chicago.
Yeah, that is a different kind. I can't talk because I don't know that way, but I know that in the Torah there's a concept of Yisachar and Zvulun, where there's a people who work
Okay.
and provide for those who study Torah, because study Torah is very important. And we need people
It's a
who study.
mitzvah?
It's
It's a
not.
mitzvah
It
to do
needs
that.
to be learned all day. The world
C'est ça.
holds with people who learn Torah.
Yeah.
So it's something that's
And
very
even
important.
in the Hasidic movement, like Chabad are one of the first ones that said, okay, we have to work, because usually Hasidim, they only study.
No,
study.
not true.
La
Chassidim are the
plupart.
biggest business.
Non, mais je parle dans les tzadikim et tout ça, là. Je
Yeah,
parle,
so those
tu
are
vois ce que je
different.
veux
They
dire?
had a different avodah. You can't compare the avodah of a tzaddik and the avodah for regular people. We're talking for regular people.
No,
You have to
Hasidim
provide.
for me are not regular people. They are like Orthodox, like
You're
they're very spiritually more
The Hasidim
high.
you're talking with the peot and the.
Tu sais, les ultra-orthodoxes, genre en Israël.
They're
et
the
ça-
biggest business people.
Really?
In Montreal, they have huge businesses.
Even in Israel?
Yeah.
Like quand tu vas à Sfat, tu
I
vas
don't know. In
danser.
Israel, I have no idea. But the Hasidim are known to have a lot of money. They work.
Okay.
They're very good in business. They provide. It's a big mitzvah to provide for your family. They are huge, very generous in tzedakah. They give
Okay.
tons of tzedakah.
And they study at the same time.
For sure they learn. For sure they learn. Every day you have to learn.
C'est important. Je me
Ils trouvent
rappelle
le temps.
d'avoir lu que quand on a fait la guerre d'indépendance en Israël,
Ouais.
ils avaient besoin d'hommes pour se battre. Ils étaient à court là, d'hommes pour se battre.
Ouais.
Et quelqu'un a suggéré à Ben Gurion de forcer les
Religieux.
ultra-orthodoxes à
À venir
se battre.
ouais.
Il a dit non. Il a dit non. Leur rôle à eux, c'est de prier.
C'est beau.
Donc il a vu, il considérait, et Ben Gurion n'était pas un...
Le plus religieux de tous.
Non.
Ouais.
Mais malgré ça,
La
c'était quand même le
nécessité.
leader
Ouais.
de ce qui allait devenir Israël, de ce qui était Israël.
Ouais.
Il a quand même, il comprenait le fait d'étudier la Torah.
C'est une forme de
C'était
de
une forme
travail.
de
Yeah.
combat
bien
aussi.
sûr.
Dana, you want to say something?
Just to continue with what Marie is saying is that
J'entends pas.
it's true that everybody
Tu vas traduire après, Sterna?
Wait, say it a little louder because they don't hear you so much.
sorry, just to continue. Sorry.
Okay.
No, it's just it was just to continue what Marie was saying, that it's true that everybody has not really like a job but a purpose, and that the people that are like in Israel that are that study and that pray, that study like every day, all day. That's their role, and we need both. And that it would make no sense to. It was. I also saw it somewhere at one point that it would make no sense to remove them from that position in order to fight physically, but because some people don't understand that what they're doing is just as important.
Yeah. And we learn it in Tanya that the study of the Torah brings a light, brings godliness into the world. That's very important. And that energy is what provides protection for the Jewish people.
I think different people have different mission in
Yes,
life.
for sure. So
that's
it's not for everyone, but
C'est ça.
but for sure providing is part of the Torah, and it's very important. And we see it in these stories that Ovadia, he could have said, okay, I saved them, I put them in the cave, God will provide for them. He took that responsibility and said, no, I will every day find meals and food for them. And he fought for them, and to the point that he didn't want to be killed just for them, so he can continue saving them. It's huge. It's a huge story, very powerful story. Now all this all these stories are to bring us to understand the first point of the alchemist, right? He brings back that this is all to explain to us that an alchemist relies on his tools to save him, right? On his tools and materials, and he still has that worry. While a Jew who has bitachon doesn't have worry of where his tools are going to come from, where his whatever he needs, his sustenance will come from, because Hashem has many ways, many creative ways. The manna, the birds, the widow, the whatever it is, Hashem has his ways of providing, and we have to believe and trust that these stories that we read in the Torah, and when we learn them, is for us to be able to apply now, today. When you're in a situation today and you're worried, you have to have bitachon and believe that Hashem will provide for you in whatever way he wants. The weirdest way, the craziest way. I want you to think, because I was thinking today of stories. I have stories of how in the most unexpected ways Hashem provided. I want you to try to think of you in your life. Did you ever have things where you were stuck and then boom, you realize, wow, like I never thought about this?
You had examples?
I had my own example. I don't know if I want to share. I want to hear your stories.
Oh. Pour moi, c'était le travail. C'est bon. J'avais compris un truc, c'est que quand je cherchais un travail, je pouvais pas rester assise et attendre que ça vienne, là, ça marchait pas. Mais il fallait que je cherche quelque part d'un côté, ça venait toujours du côté où
Isn't that crazy?
Ailleurs.
Yeah.
Ouais. Ça,
So you
you
created the vessel, and Hashem provided it in his way.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah. Very
Didn't
nice.
I have
figure
to
it
think
out,
about
it's
it.
It's just at the point that sometimes I would say, okay, well, I'm doing something. I know it's not gonna
Work.
anything. It's not gonna work, but
We never know.
it's gonna come from something else. But I knew I had to do it.
Yeah, c'est clair. It's never our ways.
Yeah.
C'est vrai, hein, ça c'est un grand message aussi.
Yeah, so again, we have to create the keli. Never think that you shouldn't do the work.
There's a word you taught us. Ishtadlut.
Ishtadlut. We have to do our work, our job, but we have to have bitachon that Hashem has many ways, in many ways he can provide.
So, ça me fait penser à une phrase de mon père. Un jour, on devait passer à l'aéroport avec une tonne de bagages, genre une tonne de bagages. Et tu sais, on n'a jamais envie de payer l'excédent de bagages. Il dit, t'inquiète pas, il va être aveuglé, le douanier, il va être aveuglé, pas le douanier, mais le gars du, you know. And I'm like, il est tellement sûr de ce qu'il dit. J'avais 30 kilos d'excédent de bagages, j'ai pas payé $1 d'excédent de bagages. C'est pas 1-2 kilos, 30 kilos. J'ai regardé mon père, comme des fois c'est stressant parce que lui dans sa tête il est convaincu qu'il va y avoir un miracle et que ça va, et le truc il va être aveuglé. And it happens, il a été aveuglé. Alors dès que tu entends des histoires comme ça, une fois, deux fois, trois fois, tu es comme, ok, ça doit exister. Tu comprends ce que je veux dire? Et moi j'ai entendu ce genre d'histoire toute mon enfance. C'est pour ça que mon bitachon est tellement fort, c'est parce que tout le temps mon père il était tellement heureux de partager ce genre de petits Can we call them miracles?
Yeah, for sure.
In a way.
We have to find the miracles. At least he was able to see them.
Yeah, and share them with us, which is what gave us, the three of us, a lot of emunah.
So we're going to continue because it reminded me of a beautiful story. We'll see. Yeah, we still have time. So, ve'amar kefir rashu v'raivu dersh Hashem la yachseru chol tov ve'amar yiru es Hashem kadeshav ki amachsar l'reyav. And as it says, young lions suffers, want, and are hungry, but those who seek the Lord do not lack any good. And as the preceding verse says, fear the Lord, his holy ones, for there is no lack for those who fear him. In the last two verses, we see once again that those who rely on God do not lack anything. Remember, nothing. You won't lack anything. If you trust in God, you'll be provided with whatever you need. As mentioned, this is because God has unlimited ability to provide for those who rely on him. It's unlimited. So if you want to rely on like an alchemist on your own, okay, today it's going to be like someone who says, I'm going to invest, and with my investment I'll make money, and then I don't have to rely on anyone for. And he says, no, this is not going to bring you peace of mind. This is limited. You're always dependent on something. You're dependent on the stock market or whatever it is.
And you're giving yourself power.
Or yourself or whatever it is that's bringing money, you're giving power.
Yeah.
But if you trust in God, God has the ability to provide in any unlimited way. And you won't be lacking anything. Like really, really, it's something you have to really, truly understand and believe, that Hashem will provide you with everything. Ovadia believed and fought, and he provided for 100 prophets. Can you imagine? In a drought. During a drought. It's a huge miracle. Okay? Let's continue. Vasheni, and the second, okay, because he's going through all the things. He said there's 10 ways that the alchemist, that bitachon could be better than wanting to be an alchemist.
Tell them the 10
So
ways?
we said the first the first one we just finished discussing, that Hashem has so many ways of providing, while anything you like alchemy or anything you put your trust in is very limited to their tools, to their resources. Hashem is unlimited. Vasheni, the second manner, Kibal hakim yatzarech lemasim velimlachas velo yishlam lo chefza zulasam ve'efshar sheyemesihu recham ve'ashanav im has madas avoda ve'orach hayegia ba'em laila ve'yomam. The second manner in which a person who has bitachon is superior to alchemists, the alchemist needs actions and procedures and cannot reach his goal without them. It is possible that the fumes and smoke will cause him to die as a result of his working continuously and spending long amounts of toiling with them day and night. So someone who believes in something else besides Hashem that will provide always has risks. Will be, and those workaholics, people who work and don't stop working, who are addicted to work. Because why are they addicted to work? They think that the more they work, the more they're gonna get, right? So this you don't have these problems, these risks of dying and getting sick and being stuck and working like crazy. You don't have that when you have bitachon.
So we need to work, but to a certain extent.
Exactly. Because why? It's not that you don't need to work to a certain extent. You need to create a keli, but there's a limit. How much can you create? How perfect can you make your keli, your vessel that will receive the blessing? וליבו בטוח ממצוא הרעות וכל אשר יבואנו מאת האלוקים יהיה לו לששון ולשמחה ותרפו בה אליו במנוחה והשקט בשלווה. Conversely, a person who trusts in God is secure from any mishaps in the present and also feels secure that no bad will happen to him in the future. This is because he believes that anything that happens to him is from God and will therefore be a cause of joy and happiness. His sustenance will come to him in a restful, calm, and peaceful manner. So what does he say over here? He says, as opposed to someone who's putting his whole faith into something, right? Like alchemy or whatever it is that you put your faith in that will give you eternal money and peace of mind. They can get sick, there's fumes, they can work day and night and get tired or whatever. But someone who works with bitachon, who has a job but has bitachon, has faith that it comes from Hashem, that Hashem will provide, he won't go crazy. He'll know that his past is taken care of, his future, his present, his future, he'll be okay because God provides for him. He won't have that fear, and instead he will have a lot of joy. Now, I just want to read it from inside.
C'est quoi conversely? C'est à l'opposé, genre?
Oui.
Okay. He says, one who trusts Hashem will not worry about anything bad happening to him. doesn't mean that bad things won't happen to him. Bad things happen to good people, and bad things happen to people who believe in God too.
Sure.
But what is the difference? Is his attitude, is his trust. And because his trust will be so strong, he will not have that stress and that worry and that fear, and instead he will have joy. Is someone there?
Je pense que oui.
Moi, j'ai entendu du bruit.
C'est pas Zali
Hello?
qui est rentré?
Maybe it's the hallway, because they would have came in. A person who has Habitachon will always be happy. And this is where there's this famous story of Nahum Ish Gamzu. Did you ever hear the story of Nahum Ish Gamzu? Anyone? Okay,
Attends,
so
c'est quoi?
Nahum Ish Gamzu. Nahum was a man who anytime anything negative happened, he always said, Gamzu letova. This is also for the good.
Ça, c'est la phrase à mon père.
Oui, c'est la bougie avec...
No,
No,
it's
c'est
not this
celui-là.
story. This is different. That's Rabbi Kiva. He would say something else. He would say,
Ça, c'est aussi pour mon bien.
yeah.
Comme ça.
but that's a different story. So Nahum Ish Gamzu lived in the times of the Romans, and
It's different.
he said it so much that people called him Gamzu. Nahum Ish Gamzu. They called him
Attends, c'est quoi son nom?
Nahum. Nahum.
Nahum.
Yeah, and Ish Gamzu. They called him like that because he said Gamzu letova for everything.
I'm so sorry. How they called him?
Nahum Ish Gamzu,
Nahum Ish Gamzu.
qui veut dire l'homme qui dit Gamzu. And what is it? Gamzu letova.
Ouais.
Now, one day the Jews, because the Romans were a little bit not always on the good side of the Jewish people, the Jews really worked hard to be on their good side. Sometimes there was decrees. Anyways, one time I think there was a decree, and the Jews wanted to stop that decree, and they sent Nahum to bring a treasure of gold and silver to the king from the Jewish people. And they knew that he had always miracles that happened to him. You know how you said your father always has miracles that happen?
Yeah.
So Nahum was
Mhm.
someone like that. They knew that he was so positive that everything always happened for the good for him. Really, we see how our thoughts have really an effect on our actions.
100%.
And so they sent him, and he traveled, and he was a very honest man, and he traveled and he stayed in an inn. And when he came with his big box to the inn, the innkeeper asked him, what are you carrying? He was honest. He said, I'm carrying a treasure for the king.
The king.
And so he goes to sleep. I'm in the middle of the night. Obviously the innkeeper was evil, and they go and they steal all the treasures, and not only do they fill it up with sand, the box. And the story goes on that he wakes up, he doesn't realize.
He will go
Maybe
to the
he
king.
does, maybe he doesn't, it doesn't matter. But at this point, he continues his journey to the king. He's almost there, to the Roman Empire, Caesar, to the Caesar. And he gets there, and he brings, and he says, here, I have a gift from the Jewish people. And the king opens up, and he sees sand, and he says, you guys are making fun of me? He sentences to death. And without budging, without even flinching, Nahum says, Gamzu letova. I'm telling you, I believe that this is for the good. He wasn't scared. He wasn't afraid.
Wow.
And they put him, as they're putting him to jail, Eliyahu Navi comes disguised in one of his officers, and he tells the king, you know, the Jews are not stupid. They're not going to send you a box of sand for no reason. This is actually sand that Avram Avinu used, and he would throw, and it would become into arrows. Try it out, and you'll see.
Oh my God. So he gave power to that sand.
So the king says, really? So they had a place where they couldn't conquer. They had a hard time conquering. So they brought the box there, and they started throwing the sand, and it really became into arrows, and they were able to conquer that place that they needed to. And so they took him out of jail, and they thanked him, and not only thanked him, they filled him with treasures for the Jewish people, and they removed the decree. Now, this story, you have to realize that by him thinking that Gamzu letova was, because if they wouldn't have stolen the treasure, it wouldn't have especially had an effect on the king. The king wouldn't have been impressed by treasures and golds because he has anyways. So he was able to delve deep into the challenge and bring out the good in the challenge by him saying Gam zu litova and trusting that this is also for the good. It was actually for the good. The fact that they stole was a good thing.
Okay.
Now just think about it. When you have something bad that happens to you, it's not that it happens and then you find some good in it. It's that the actual thing that happened
You have to
was
think.
for the good, because the other way wouldn't have been better. And that's where we have to work in our bitachon.
100%.
Is that it's not bad things we can't control. Challenges we can't stop them from coming. We have to be able to reveal that this challenge was for the good to begin with. The other way wasn't good. Hashem saved us from something. Hashem saved us from something by giving us this challenge. And we, with our bitachon, with our trust in Hashem, we have to be able to find them. Believe me, I'm saying this, but it's not always easy. It's never easy to really be able to say with a full heart, Gam zu litova, this is also for the good, and be joyful about it, and be able to realize that if it didn't happen, something worse would have happened. That is a very hard work. We don't always get to see it, but this is our work to do, and this is the second step of the how.
I think it's the best proof of trust to Hashem that we can give. It's to be joyful or okay with a challenge. Like, c'est comme tellement le contraire.
And not to give up, and not to give in, not to give up and not to give in, but believe that there's something good that this happened. And the hardest is when there's a death, because you're like, how can you find good in a death? But obviously it's not for us to tell others, but it's for us to, in our own life, to try to find it in our personal life. And with this, I will conclude the beautiful pasuk that says, as it says, he causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. God will provide like a shepherd provides for his sheep, right? He brings them to green pastures. He will provide us like a shepherd to his sheep. And not only, he will lead me beside still water, calm, peaceful water. So not only will he provide for me, but he will provide peace. And it won't be through hardships and through pain and through struggle. This is the class of today. Thank you very much.